Oh, hey buddy, it's your old pal Scott, and this is Let's Talk Tabletop. I usually cover wargaming and specifically Warhammer or Mass Brutality on my channel. And this time is actually about Battletech. And it's because Battletech community is in flames right now. They're having a huge meltdown. And I'm going to give you a fair and balanced opinion from the outside of exactly what's going on here. So let's dig in. So just recently at Adepticon, Catalyst Games announced that there was a new version of Battletech coming out called Battletech Gothic. And forgive me if during this video I call it Battlefleet Gothic because they're very similar. But essentially, a lot of people are having a problem with this because this is essentially introducing a continuum of multi-dimensional, like alternate universes in Battletech. And of course, people say that's not my Battletech, etc., etc. Starting off, I am not a Battletech player. The closest to playing Battletech I've ever gotten is playing the Battletech PC game, which I greatly enjoyed and played dozens of hours of. Let's start with what is going on with this Battletech Gothic. Essentially, you got a little bit of peanut butter in my chocolate. You put some grimdark 40K-esque setting into the Battletech setting, sloshed it all around, and now you have this new universe. A lot of the same factions, a lot of the same named characters, but they're all just different. And it involves having these demonic-esque giant kaiju. It actually seems like they're genetically bred. They're not actually demons, but the mech warriors have a much more stylistic view. The actual mechs themselves have a very stylistic view, and they look more of like pirates or chaosy than they do your typical Battletech fare. And of course, a lot of people have a problem with this, but it's not just a problem with the new setting. Number one, people say this isn't my Battletech because it's a completely new setting, completely new history, and you just threw it on us suddenly. There was no hint as to this happening. Obviously, they have a new starter set with new miniatures and a ton of background lore, and art. So clearly, this was not an overnight decision. Clearly, they've been working on this for months or maybe even years, right? With the production times and everything involved. And a lot of people are upset. You want more of what you already like. You're not interested in this new thing. You want more of what you already like. So I understand why people would be upset over that, to a degree. Another complaint that the Battletech community apparently has is that Catalyst Games relies too heavily on Kickstarters, and essentially they're not cultivating a gaming club atmosphere at the game store because almost their entire population of players buy into these big Kickstarters. Catalyst Games makes a lot of money, and then what's the incentive to buy it at the store? And if you don't sell it at the store, then stores don't carry it and they don't support a gaming club. And then there you are, right? You have all these little insular pockets. Even though it's supposedly popular, you have these insular pockets of clubs. And it doesn't have the mass exposure that Warhammer does. Another issue with the Kickstarter that people have is they claim that why on earth did you spend the time, the money, the resources, and everything to make this side thing? And a lot of the Kickstarters are still not fulfilled. I mean, they've been Kickstartered months, a long time ago, and they still have not got their stuff. Some people have, and some people are still waiting. So they are a little bothered that more focus isn't into just completing the actual Kickstarters that you already gave them money for, and instead, now we're interested in something else and making a new project. I kind of understand that as well, because if I paid a bunch of money and I didn't even get my product, and now they're moving on to the next thing, that seems kind of bad, right? That gives you the feel-bads. So I understand why people are upset that a lot of people claim that the IP is being mismanaged and the community is being mismanaged. And there's been a whole bunch of stuff like on their Discord and whatever. They're banning people on Twitter, etc., which that's neither here nor there for me. But I definitely see where it could make fans angry. It does seem that this Battletech Gothic is like your fire starters and things like that, but they're just a different version of them. So a lot of people that are trying to look at the silver lining of things are actually saying, well, maybe I'll buy these and use them as pirates or something like that, because they're spiky and they're kind of, Baroque, the armor is and whatnot. It's funny that they keep mentioning these abominations, these big monsters, but I'm interested to see what the miniatures actually look like for them, because I think the starter set is just mechs. So I don't know if they're going to just rely on you using other miniatures for that or what. But another thing is people are pretty sick of a multiverse now. They're pretty darn sick of that. Marvel has ran that into the ground, and comic books in general have done that. And you see it seeping into more and more different things. And the multiverse is just another thing that people are tired of. And I'm okay with that, right? I don't really think that's a big deal. Now, of course, I'm not a Battletech fan, but looking from the outside, I have a couple concerns. First off, I feel like the Battletech community is being a little harsh on Catalyst Games because, yes, if they rely too heavily on Kickstarters, that's the problem. Yes, if they don't foment a community, that's a problem. And yes, you might be waiting for more product in the Battletech line that you enjoy, and then they just give you this out of the blue, and it feels like they pull the rug out from under you. I understand that, but on the other hand, we have Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar. We have Mantic's Kings of War and Warpath. I mean, it's not super uncommon for different genres to be in the same rule set or in the same thing. I mean, I have Mass Brutality, Brutality Skirmish, Brutal Space, and Brutal Epic. So those are all using basically the same rules, just kitted out differently. And but anyway, the point is I don't think this is a big deal. Matter of fact, from an outside point looking in, is that I look at these models, the mechs, and I'm like, they look pretty cool because I'm not attached to it already. If I were attached to it, a new watcher of Star Trek Discovery might love it, but I see that it's so far removed from the Star Trek I love that it doesn't mean anything to me. So definitely they're trying to branch out and do something else, grab some people that maybe are into 40k and like the Gothic thing, and maybe you'll pick up some of them doing this, right? I don't blame Catalyst Games for that. And another thing is that, yes, I understand when you have not gotten your Kickstarter for a long time that you might be mad about that. But the artists that make this artwork, do they handle the Kickstarter fulfillment? Does the writers of Catalyst Games that wrote this backstory, do they handle it? Do the model designers, do they handle the fulfillment of Kickstarters? Probably not. So what else are they going to do, right? They always got to be working on the next thing. It could be issues with manufacturing. It could be issues with China. It could be supply issues for the Kickstarter. I don't know. But it does seem like that might be an unfair take because they just can't produce anything new until they fulfill all their Kickstarters. Apparently, most people have gotten their Kickstarters, but not everybody. That kind of sucks. That's kind of the problem with Kickstarter. So to me, I think this is a good idea. They might actually bring in new people, or at least they're giving you a variant on the mechs that you already love, right? Maybe you just completely ignore the backstory and you just take these new mechs that are pretty cool looking and you make pirates or, I don't get Satanists or whatever you want out of it, right? I don't think that's a bad idea. And matter of fact, it's worked for so many other properties that why wouldn't it work for Battletech, arguably? A lot of people see this as a cash grab, and I still think that's somewhat unfair. I mean, these businesses have to keep building, right? They have to constantly be expanding, and they've already said this is going to be a series of one-shot starter sets set with different settings alternate to Battletech. The next one is ray guns and lasers and anime or something like that. And honestly, we get some Gundam-looking Battletech mechs, and I might buy that set. Like, that could actually be pretty cool. You could see some anime style, smooth curves instead of the boxy design you get. And, you could be a different corporation in regular Battletech. And to be honest with you, I think it's really smart that they're keeping with the same chassis and the same classes of mechs in regular Battletech, because then you could get people that want a variation, right? It kind of sucks that in regular Battletech, my mech is exactly the same as your mech. They just painted differently, right? You could be a different faction or a different corporation than me, and I just have a different camo pattern. Well, okay, like that's kind of, I understand from a manufacturing point of view, and I understand people that do kit bash their mechs, but I think this is kind of a neat opportunity to get some really neat looking mechs, right? And I think it's interesting to have a different setting, just like Age of Sigmar and 40K. All of my game variants have different settings completely. They're not tied to each other. So I don't think it's a big deal personally. Now, again, I don't have a horse in the race necessarily. I look at these miniatures and I actually might pick up that set. I mean, I'm not going to play Battletech. I'm going to use that for Brutal Epic, but it doesn't matter, right? You're still buying the miniatures. To me, if I were a Battletech player, the maddest that I would be out of all of this is the fact that they don't support the community and they rely so heavily on Kickstarter. Relying heavily on Kickstarter, to me, seems like the company is in financial trouble. It seems to me like if a bigger corporation like Catalyst Games, I say bigger, but like a more established IP is relying on these quick injections of cash, that's scary. That's scary as a person looking from the outside in, because that seems to me like somebody that's essentially getting payday loans or something like that, where they need cash right now. And that's not super sustainable. As long as they don't stop supporting Battletech, the original Battletech, if they keep doing these side things, getting feelers out there for what people might be interested in the meantime, the regular Battletech people will hopefully be getting some support, and they're getting these new miniatures to use in Battletech. I feel like maybe they are blowing it a little bit out of proportion. So, what are your thoughts? Am I being unreasonable, or do you think the fans are being unreasonable? You tell me in the comments. Thank you for watching the show. Like, subscribe, all of that. Thank you to my beautiful, sexy, good-smelling Patreon patrons. I appreciate all of you. And check out my miniature agnostic game, specifically Brutal Epic, where it's 6mm. Design them how you want using the rule set. Use any miniatures of any type. Anyway, I will see you next week. Thanks for watching.